Hello, 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 and welcome to Mercury Rising. This is me, Joe G, with the best astrological throw in all of YouTube. I don't think anyone can argue with that. So, yes, welcome. This is yet another episode of Keeping Up with the Moon, the show where we look at what the moon is doing and make some art about it, hopefully to understand some of these really weird and abstract and complicated astrological concepts. We're going to be looking at the full moon in Aries of October of 2021. So, yes, with that, let's get to it. Before we get to the specifics of the lunation, I think, like always, it's always best to first understand what Aries even means. Whenever the fire triplicity or element is the topic of conversation, Aries is the first sign that comes to the mind of astrology memers all across the internet. As much as there's some validity to the hot-headedness and impulsivity sometimes attributed to the sign, I don't think we'd be giving the diurnal home of Mars justice by interpreting it in such a one-dimensional manner. So then, in more complicated terms, what does Aries mean? So, as a fire sign, Aries is dry and hot in quality. It is also cardinal, meaning it initiates, directs, and focuses on the human need to penetrate, Mars, and to be in the moment. It seeks to individualize by leading by example, and it does so by inspiring others to do what they do. In many ways, Aries is the sign of the call to action. And I want to be careful with the word leading, because I hear it tossed around all the time that Aries makes a good leader, but I think this whole thing goes a little bit deeper than that. Aries seeks to show you how to lead, but it doesn't always have to be the center of attention at all times, as some like to believe. That might change a little bit when we're talking about the sun exalted in Aries, but that's not to say that that's universal, and that's a bad thing either. Either way, through the influence of Mars, it's about will, intention, bravery, and as Joy Usher puts it in his book, A Tiny Universe, Aries is a cardinal sign that carries a primal urge to instigate action. It is unlikely to bear the strain of its energy being contained for very long. And that's a good way to bring us to Saturn, who's said to be fallen in the sign, probably because the slow planet is not really down for impulsivity or even making very showy statements, contrary to the sun. On the other hand, Saturn does have triplicity rulership over Aries, which can show us how the coldness of Saturn, which sometimes causes pessimism and sluggishness, can be tempered by the Aries fire. Though since both the sign and the planet are dry, it promotes dryness, which sometimes can cause a little bit of isolation, sometimes to a detrimental degree. But yeah, so this full moon is happening at 27 degrees Aries. In the Astrolabium Planum by Johannes Engel, that degree is described as the degree of a peaceable person, with the image of a woman standing upright, wearing fine clothes. Also, to continue with the feminine imagery, this degree is also where we find the fixed star Vertex, the thigh of Andromeda. And that's a funny story because she almost died because her mother decided to brag about how pretty she was to a whole bunch of mermaids. And I don't think mermaids like to be messed with very much. But still, Vertex is a star of the nature of Mars and the moon, as Ptolemy suggests, perhaps delineating impulse and reliability, and as the myth suggests, some family shenanigans. Sometimes also it can tell the story of the price of being a golden star child. The feminine imagery also continues on if we look at the decans. This is also the third decan of Aries, the decan ruled by Venus. In the tarot, it's represented by the Four of Wands, which also, funny enough, does have some family imagery attached to it. But contrary to what the image suggests, Venus is still in detriment in Aries. And the decan of Venus in Aries can show how the goddess of love can actually thrive in that space. So one way we can read this is going back to the basic but very valuable advice that I'd given in the previous lunation. Venus can thrive in this space by looking pretty in the middle of a disaster, but not just by looking pretty, but by keeping your composure, by not letting the fire really startle you. If you remember fire drills from high school, you shouldn't panic. You should be calm and continue to move. And I think that that's what Venus and Aries, especially in this decan, can do very well. This also even has some synergy with the myth of Andromeda, because beauty is what got her into trouble, but it's also what got her out of it. And this is because Perseus fell in love with her just as he was flying by and slew the monster that was set to kill her, saving the day. A true love story. So maybe the advice that I'd given in the previous lunation is not so bad. Be sad, but be pretty. It might seem silly and superficial, but sometimes taking care of your physical appearance can actually translate how you feel inwardly. With that said, it might even be on brand to take care of your human mask for a day or two. Aries is the sign correspondent to the upper areas of the face, and sometimes even simplified to the whole face altogether, so there might be something there that you do want to explore. Since the familial theme showed up in many levels of the symbolism of this lunation, and especially in ways that might have been too fiery to be fun, Capricorn ascendant, who has this lunation happening in their 4th house, might want to pay extra attention and be a little bit more patient with familial issues going forward. And if we're getting a little bit more specific, which I'm gonna try to do with these lunation reports from now on, those of you who are 27, 39, 51, 63, and you get the pattern by now, just add 12 to that if you're older than 63. You want to really be patient with the family, or with your home for that matter. For the other signs, it would still be wise to try and chill out a bit. The fieriness of this lunation is definitely a little bit too much. So a few things that you can do to temper that is take a few more baths. Maybe even listen to some more rain sounds. Change your nightlight to blue. You know, go meditate. Cucumber mask to keep it Aries. Whatever chills you out, really. Still, if there were arguments brewing earlier in the lunation that didn't happen or did happen and ended up kind of nasty, you might want to revisit them, since now Mercury is direct or moving forward, making conversations a little bit easier to happen or to be understood. Especially if you did take the time to take those baths and the cucumber face mask and all of those chilling things. And speaking of chilling out, sometimes listening to a random person on YouTube telling you to essentially calm your titties, and who doesn't know any of your life story or where you currently are in your path right now is not very helpful. There's a lot that can be lost in translation, and there is even a lot that might entirely not be relevant to you at the moment. And that's exactly why getting a personal reading is so much better. Together, we can actually find the source of the stress, or even an easy way out of it. And in the case that the present is fine, we can even look into the possibilities in the year ahead, so when they do come, you're feeling fully prepared to tackle them. This is why, beyond lunar reports, I also do personal readings ranging from 1 hour to 2 hours long. In a consultation, we sit and chat about your life, your chart, and where those two could possibly be taking you. So if the full moon report doesn't feel like enough, you know what to do. You can go to my website at themercuryrising.com to book a reading today, and once you do, we can sit and chat about what the heavenly stars can possibly have in store for you. And also, if your birthday is coming soon, I'd like to honor that by also offering a 30% discount for anyone who's having their birthday, I don't know, in the next like 6 months or so. But it's fine. If your birthday as long as your birthday is within the year, I think we're good. And you can find all the details about that on my website. And again, that is themercuryrising.com. With the ad aside, let's get back to the lunation. So it's an Aries full moon, and I don't think we spent enough time talking about Mars. So let's explore that a little bit. So the Mars and Sun struggle that I'd mentioned in the previous lunation continues to be the same. The Sun started to move away from Mars, which is a good thing, almost representing how we're beginning to gain back some of the drive and the energy that we've been lacking for the past little while. But Mars is still far from visible, and he's still in Libra, a place where neither him and the Sun really love being at. The good thing is that Venus is able to see Mars and the Sun, so she can provide a little bit of help, not much, but still there. And Mars is able to see the Moon, which does help a little bit. This help is still coming through a diameter or an opposition, which can mean that events unfolding throughout the lunation are still tense, like we're trying to move forward, but every time we take a step forward, we bump into a wall. And it's just like, it's frustrating. You want to punch it. You're not the happiest about it, but it's still there. And working around it is what we gotta do. But to bring back this whole idea of the diameter or the opposition, this can also mean that these difficulties or these barriers are put in place are somewhat necessary. Like almost you have to learn to do the opposite of what you're really good at, because that one thing is going to end up being your saving grace as time develops. If we go back to the whole Andromeda myth, again, the thing that got her into trouble, her pretty face, is also what got her out of it. She probably would rather not be there in that whole situation from the get-go. Like, we're probably not super stoked to be where we currently are at the moment. But now that we're here, we're here. So we have two options. We either cry about it or we do something about it. But with that said, if the thing that you've been putting off or the barrier that's in your life right now is the procrastination on shedding some tears and crying a little bit, then stop doing anything else and do the crying that you need. Mars can be crying, I think. Sometimes, maybe, who knows? Maybe like really aggressive crying, like really ugly face crying, like you're really just like, purging everything. Mars in Scorpio, which he's going to be there very soon, is responsible for the excretory system, so I guess we can kind of bring some of that in there as well. I think not even just a little bit, I think a lot. The excretory system does expel some physical nasty things from your body, but sometimes it's also necessary to purge the not physical nasty things that stay within you, you know? But just to get back in focus again, Mars in this lunation is also just separating from a trine to Jupiter, which is actually very beneficial, but because it's separating, maybe it was an event that happened before the actual lunation. So maybe some help, insight, or mercy in a way from a teacher or a guru if you have one, or who knows, an astrologer. Whatever that advice might have been, it's probably one that you want to take with you throughout the course of the rest of the lunation until we get to that sweet, sweet new moon in Scorpio. But that doesn't quite soften the blow of Mars's heat. Mars is still being burnt. It's not visible. It's in a hot sign because Libra is an air sign, so it's hot and moist. And both the Sun and Mars are already hot planets, so the heat is really upscaled here. But to add to that whole equation, the moon is also in Aries, who, guess what? Is also a scorching sign. So heat is in the air for sure. And that's not to say that heat is bad, but this is not really like a summer evening where you're just like, yeah, feels nice. It's more like a forest fire, and I probably want to bring some, I don't know, would water be a good thing in a forest fire? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I'm not that great of a scientist. Whether that's a sound idea or not, we do want to bring some cooling elements into our lives. And I did mention a few earlier on, such as like the mask thing and all that. But you can really get creative. But speaking of creativity, I think that is a really nice way to go into the native of the day, or the native of the lunation. This one is a little bit different from the previous ones, so you might want to bear with me for a sec. So for this new moon, the native I chose is Casey Reas, a and a visual artist and programmer, I believe, originally from Ohio. And usually I try to favor artists who do have the sign of the lunation in their 5th house, because that's usually where you find creativity, artworks, and anything like that. But this time around I had quite a hard time actually finding that, so I had to change things a little bit. So the reason why I chose Casey's chart is because it closely resembles some of the configurations of this lunation. So he was really close to a full moon in Aries with the Sun and Mars in Libra, and he's also an Aries ascendant, so really highlighting the whole lunation, and that felt really good for what I was looking for. And also Aries ascendant does put Leo in the 5th house, so that whole Sun in Libra is ruling the 5th house, which does have some synergy with the topics of the lunation, so I thought, why not? But just a few fun things about his chart. With the ruler of the ascendant in the 7th house, the place of partnerships, collaborations, and marriage, and all those fun things that you cannot do alone. We'd expect a native who primarily focuses on partnerships and collaboration, and that's what Reas does just fine. So just a little bit of background on Reas's life. He's mostly known for a partnership with Ben Fry on creating the software called Processing. Processing is a creative engine that uses code to make art. And since its development in early 2001, through his software and also through his own personal project, Reas has probably collaborated with close to hundreds of artists by now. Another really fun astrological fact about Processing, the software that he released, it just had its stable release in August of this year, and I was looking at the perfections, and this happened during a 1st house perfection year and a 10th house perfection month, which I thought was really cool to see. The 10th house is the place of career and action, so it's not surprising to see Reas's major work be fully released on that month and that year. This doesn't have too much to do with the lunation, but it's fun to see perfections in action. But because perfections are not the focus of this video, I'm not gonna go too deep into it. But if you would like me to do so and like talk about perfections a little bit more, let me know in the comments. And eventually, I promise, a video will happen. But anyways, back to the lunation. So yes, for the past lunations, I had a bigger focus on what we could learn from the native or from the artist who resembles the lunation, who has some of the configurations from the lunation in their chart. But this one is a little bit different. I think we can still learn something from it, but I think that his work is more useful for us to understand the vibe, I guess. I don't really like the word vibe, but just the atmosphere, what's in the air, what does this actually feel like? By perusing through Reas's body of work, I realized that most of his pieces are very jarring. And I find that jarring can be a really good board for Aries, especially Aries artwork. Take a look at his piece, Untitled 2, Kiss Me, in collaboration with Jan St. Werner. It's fucking weird, but I love it. But my weird taste in art is not the topic of conversation right now. I think that the really fascinating thing that we can learn by sitting with his art is understanding how it would feel to live in a space like that. Things right now are somewhat tense. Mars, who's supposed to represent again our drive and willingness to act and conquer our enemies, is really tired. But wouldn't you be tired if you lived in a space like that? I mean, we kind of are. And just to illustrate the lunation a little bit further, take a look at this other piece. This one is called Untitled 4, 2 Dead, exclamation mark. Another collaboration with Jan St. Werner. I think so. I feel like I've been there. But yeah, I'd encourage you to sit with his library and kind of just like inspect how does it feel to sit with his work a little bit, you know? I'll leave all the links in the description for his website and his Vimeo where you can watch all of his videos. But yes, doesn't it feel bizarre or difficult? And I think that the sense of difficulty is what we're trying to focus on here. We're at the very tail end of this lunation, and we're moving towards a new moon where Mars will be much more potent than it is right now. And perhaps even a lot more potent than we want him to be. So right now is a really good opportunity to sit with Reas's work and try to study it. And really think, is this strange world really that bad? Or is there something good that can come from it? Or is there room for thriving in a space like that? I mean, the first piece that I showed is called Kiss Me. Where's the kiss in that? I think that's your job, is to find it. But yeah. And if we're to talk about the art assignment for the lunation, so we can really dive deep into these topics and try to understand them, this is what we want to do. I won't specify the medium or anything like that. You can really just go crazy, take a picture, draw something, write a song, write a poem, whatever. But I really just want you to try and put that sense of difficulty on paper or in sound or wherever way it may be, because I feel like once you can actually look at that difficulty, maybe you can come with more objective ways of tackling it. But really focus on that feeling that you're ready to go and do something and conquer the world, but the world is not necessarily ready for you. And the frustration that can come from that. And I think to take this a little bit further too, and I think even more helpfully so, I think one valuable thing to think about is what happens if I actually break free from this strange world? Will things be better or will they be worse? Is what lies on the other side of freedom peace or more disaster? And I'm saying this because this really takes us into the next lunation very well. The next new moon in Scorpio will have that wonderful Saturn, Mars, Uranus T-square, which actually incorporates a lot of this energy of really pushing through those sort of barriers and all of that. You know, you've probably heard it 1,000 times by now. So maybe it's not too bad of an idea to sit and think about what you're gonna do then now, as Mars is a little bit weaker, so we don't necessarily have that big of a pressure, especially with Scorpio. It's a fixed sign. It's like that tense pressure to really just just go and do it, and end up doing something stupid. So I think right now is a good time to sit and plan and really take a more objective look at the situation. At the end of the day, Mars is very useful, it's very constructive, but we don't want that primal Mars instinct to get out of hand, which can do so very, very easily, especially if you're born during the day. But anyways, that's all I have for today. I hope that this helped illustrate the full moon ahead and that I gave you enough stuff to do throughout this cycle so you can understand it more. And so when we get to the next one, we have the wisdom to back up our actions. If you want to listen to the song that I created inspired by this new moon, all you gotta do is just stick to the very end of this video and it's going to be there. And like always, if you do end up making some artistic works inspired by this new moon as well, or sorry, for this full moon as well, I'm more than happy to look at it, and I'll even feature in the next episode if I do get something. And you can send it to my email at joegcopy@gmail.com, or you can find me in any of my social medias at astroboy Joji or astroboy.joji, but if you write either, you're gonna find it. And again, if you want a less abstract and more objective look at this lunation, or at the year ahead, or even longer periods, or if you have specific questions, I am taking consultations at the moment. And you can find me at my website, themercuryrising.com. But yes, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I'm really trying to up the production level of these things, or maybe not the production level. I'm trying to edit less. And so I started scripting these videos, and I hope that it didn't feel too mechanical and it still felt natural. But I notoriously forget what I'm talking about midway through sentences all the time, especially when I'm talking to a camera. So I think this scripting helps keeps these videos a little bit more direct and concise. So yes, I hope you enjoyed that. And yes, stay peaceful. Have a great, fantastic lunation. Carry a bucket of ice with you if things get too hot. And yes, have a great, dandy, sweet, good old time. And again, if you did have a good time with me today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep up with the best astrological fro on all of YouTube. Yes, the stars say so. But yeah, anyways, bye-bye guys. See you then.
Away from home, unfamiliar house on fire. Know that I work for prize not near, but I'll admire. It keeps spreading bit by